Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. I hope you have had an excellent week. Today, once again, we are going to cover with you some tips and tricks to hopefully help you improve your drawing ability, right? Always trying to bring it from a force standpoint. And force is not only force, under that umbrella comes form and construction and shape and perspective and a lot of psychology, because we love talking about that as well. But today, this interesting subject. I really love drawing profiles. And I think over the years, I've learned a lot of tricks. And that's what we want to share with you today. And they're going to go from being some pretty deep psychological tricks to very technical tricks across myself and the other two instructors. So let's go say hello to Rapunzel and Swanley. How you doing, Rapunzel?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to draw some heads today. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Who doesn't love drawing heads, right? It's like the love and the bane of all of our existence, right? Like just so much fun to draw faces and construction and personalities. And yet, when you're somebody out there who's learning how to draw heads, it feels like this very daunting challenge. And it's like, oh my God, I can draw everything but draw a human face. Whenever somebody says that to me, by the way, that the little flag that goes up in my head with that is, if you're having a problem drawing heads, it means you just don't know perspective and construction. Like that is the basic foundation. That's usually the problem. All of a sudden, eyeballs and mouths and stuff are like floating around this shape. They're not tied down to a skull and to the perspective of the skull. You don't even have to know the skull that well, but know perspective well, you can still get away with drawing a pretty darn good head, So with that, how are you doing, Swenley?
Yeah, good. Ready to turn some heads today.
That's all right. Some heads are gonna roll. Oh God, this week has been like pun week for me. I got to tell you, I'm shocked as to how many puns I can come up with while I'm teaching and mentoring. Like, and I don't even do it on purpose. And I'm like, oh, there's another one. I just came out of a hands thing, and I was like, all hands on deck, hands this, hands that. Like all these jokes to come up with hand drawing. So weird. All right, so let's get to it. We have a lot of fun stuff to take a look at today. I want to get my other headphone in to make sure this other one doesn't tank on you guys in the middle of the meeting. Okay. So drawing heads, I grabbed some characters here to discuss, just to share with you. And then I think maybe I'll do some doodling, and then we'll come back and take a look at these again. There's an interesting thing, I have to say, out in the world's culture, a global culture, and it's also very fair to say that it doesn't have to be global. Certain countries, certain nationalities have different profiles, different jaw types, different noses. Noses can change based on where you live in the world. Some areas, there's all different kinds of noses. Some other areas is like, oh, this is like a very generic kind of nose in this region versus in another region, right? As I itch my nose. And then in the US, I think we've kind of turned this into what we think, quote unquote, appealing is. I say this in quotes again because it's so subjective, but we grew up learning these things. What's like an appealing nose or a non-appealing nose, or what looks like a villain's face versus a hero's face versus a heroine's face. Right? It's really interesting. It's very interesting to me to recognize that. And I bring this up, I have a couple of students who I've been working with some time, and they know how to draw well, yet the last sort of little tiny hurdle that they go through is, how do you create appeal? Like how do you get things to look good too at the same time? And I want to discuss that. So for my segment in profile, I want to talk about force in profile. I want to talk about how profiles create different forces in the faces, and those forces start dictating not only emotion but character. Like we've been kind of trained to have it evoke certain character types, right? So this is Amy Adams. Right, you've seen Amy. She played Lois Lane in the Superman movies, for instance, probably one of her most famous roles. And then over here is Rapunzel, right? And to me, Amy Adams is like a realistic version of Rapunzel, right? She has like the quintessential sort of princess profile, very roundish forehead, the upward pointed nose, very, very important, right? Look at the cute little nose over there, right? Upward pointed nose. A strong chin, but not overly strong, right? We don't want that chin too powerful. Then it gets to feel too masculine, right? So she's just got it. It's like, it's perfect profile of a face, right? Interesting, right? Just interesting that, and again, just to be clear, I'm saying this all tongue in cheek in a sense, right? Then we have the villain. Actually, let's start with the hero here. We'll talk about John Smith. So we have Pocahontas, by the way. So here they tried to push culture, right? So they kind of flattened her nose down and brought the nose closer in with the forehead, right? Almost a straight line going down, very subtle nuance between the forehead and the nose. They gave her really full lips, right? And tried to push this to feel a little bit more Native American. And then you have John Smith, strong brow, strong straight nose, almost Greek, right? They always say like a Greek nose, a powerful Greek nose is like a straight line. Christopher Reeve would have been a great example of that, the old Superman, right? He had a very straight, like I said, Greek hero kind of nose. Notice the chin, right? Very different chins. Both of them are strong, but his lip, we dip down, right? And then push out, which really gives him this very strong chin, strong jaw, right? And then here's John Ratcliffe, another John, same film. And he's got a very strong outward pushed nose, or what I dare to call like a hawk nose, right? And it does, it looks like more like a bird kind of beak nose, right? It's that kind of shaping. Usually the villains, right? Usually has this kind of nose, outward but downward sweeping lips, almost in disgust, right? Almost the kind of look of disgust. Still has a strong chin, but then they made him overweight, right? And they pushed more weight down underneath the chin. So that takes away from him the strong jaw, right? Interesting. So these are not accidents, right? There's professionals out there called character designers who are creating these characters that are supposed to be clearly read by us as an audience in looking at what we think is a hero, what is a villain, what is a princess or a heroine, and so on, right? And this goes for casting. This is live action films too. I mean, it's no accident that like we had Christopher Reeve, now we have like Henry Cavill as Superman, right? Superman's this quintessential hero, strong jawed, thick black hair, right? High cheekbones, has that whole look about him, right? And the villains don't look like that, right? Villains aren't usually that heroic looking, that handsome looking, right? With those attributes. Sorry, I'm getting over my my flu from last week. So I want you to be aware of this, right? So when you're drawing a face, a profile, let me grab this other, soft touch brush. I usually start with just a simple kind of arc, right? Like here's this profile arc, right? And I like playing off of this. So to me, it becomes this additive, subtractive, or constructive, deconstructive type of situation. It's like, oh, I want hero and I want a strong brow. That gets added sort of beyond that generic arc, you see? If I want the strong nose, maybe it goes out a little, maybe it sweeps in, but I want it to be the hero, so I might give it an upward sweep, right? So it might be something like this, you see? Good lips, right? So not too big, not too small, full, but not too crazy. And of course, the quintessential chin, right? We want strong chin, strong jaw, and like there it is, right? So what you'll notice is how much I'm pushing in and out, what kind of shapes I'm making beyond that line, right? So if I take that line again, I can really start to play with this. I could say, well, I love what's his name, Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson's profile, he's got a very strong tilted forehead, right? Like that. So that's kind of cool, But I can make this maybe a villain. Maybe I do that, and then I do the hawk nose. Maybe I even take the hawk nose and dip it back in towards the arc of the face and then pull it out. Maybe point it downward. Look at that sharp little pointy nose I made, right? And then here, more of like a frowned mouth, right? Maybe the lips are pointing down, right? Maybe I give him a weak chin, right? I swoop it back, you see? So, man, massive difference, right? Look at that. And all of this is really forceful. You know, it's like here, the forces got a little more equalized, a little more push, you know, cute nose, right? Upward. Notice everything is kind of optimistic, right? Upward, optimistic, upward, upward, upward. Here, we're going down, we're going down, we're going down, downward, 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 pessimistic, right? Optimistic, pessimistic. And in this one, I have a lot of applied force sitting like here in the face, right? I really pushed out in the forehead. Maybe I want to push out in the jaw, right? Like what if I kind of keep the top a little more flat and I push the jaw out like this, right? That's a very different profile. So here, you know, it's almost like Jay Leno, right? The comedian. It's like super heavy jaw. I'm pushing all the force out into the lower jaw, right? So this is this person's like quintessential facial attribute. I can give him a little nose, maybe not much of a brow at all, right? Maybe the brow is really weak. So I can just go right off the edge there and say, well, I'm going to tuck an eye in there. All right, really smooth. Maybe they have just a simple, cute little upturned nose. And they look like this, right? So, man, now I pushed it all into the chin. Now, what's always amazing to me about this kind of work is I did caricatures for over a decade, and no matter what I come up with here, somebody's going to kind of look like it out there in the world. Like, it's amazing. You know, no matter what you come up with, you're going to find something like this. Someone out there has a more smooth forehead transition right down into the nose, as a little button nose like this, with no top lip, but maybe a bigger bottom lip and then a huge jaw, right? So, you know, I just want you to be aware of the fact that in profile, you can get really creative with how you use force to push on different areas of the face. And that gives you different personality types, right? You know, like I said before, Amy Adams and Rapunzel, right? There's a lot of optimism, very safe too, right? Safe and cute, round, right? Round is always very safe, cute shapes. Upward nose, upward mouth, right? Roundish chin, strong, but rounded, not angular, right? It's like it works right now. To show you what I just went over, very pointed. Pointed also typically in profile with the nose and such means somebody's very focused. They're goal driven, right? So there's psychology behind, again, the abstraction of the silhouette, very goal driven, right? And like here, as I drew for you before, downward, usually hawkish, which usually means more evil, more wicked, and a lot of downward movement in the angles of all the features, right? So I hope that makes sense. I brought in some photos. These are from an excellent Instagram called Earth's World, which I've shared with the people that I teach and mentor. This guy takes just really great photos of very real, unique individuals at like fairs and stuff like that. And they're just awesome, you know, super real, just super real people, right? And, you know, you can see here, like this guy's very smooth, right? Smooth all throughout, right? And then, you know, then from this smoothness comes his, you know, his like crazy eyebrow, right? He's got these eyebrows. You can see the smallness of, you know, the smallness of the eyelid. All this stuff is like super tiny and narrow in here, right? He's got pretty simple nose. You know, you'll notice its peak is pretty straightforward. Doesn't feel good or evil or anything, right? But his head, he doesn't have a heroic head, right? There's no strong jaw, no strong chin. This guy's grown up. He's had his whole life where his chin is more recessed, right? Like the style of his head, his face, right? Mustaches are great, right? So this is poking out as a shape, like so. Got his lip pulling out. And then he's got a very inwardly thrusted chin, right? It's a curve, but you'll notice it's underneath, right? For that chin to be strong, it's really got to get out here with like the apex of that curve of the face, right? I mean, watch this. You want to see me change him to a superhero, right? It's like all I got to do is go like this to this guy and give him a chin like this, right? And boom, everything changes, right? That quickly. Okay. So that's one face. Another face. Having a beard, for instance, also gives you a stronger jawline. Some men don't have a very strong jawline, so they use a beard to kind of build out the silhouette, and also they'll cut the edge of the beard along the jawline to strengthen the edge, right? That's not an accident, you know. The more clever guys will know to do that. So when I look at this guy, you know, here's my curve. I would say, wow, he's got a really strong forehead, right? I can really feel the cliff of the forehead, basically, right? And then we get under here, and his eye is really tucked. You know, it's really tucked back from that. You see, his nose goes through this like, you know, it goes through a dip in this way, and then a straight, and then very bulbous. So round, typically friendly. But he's got this heavy brow too. So a little bit of contention going on between those two, but very roundish nose, right? Super, super round nose. Interesting mouth, right? So this pushes out, this is out here. It's almost a vertical drop, but his lip, you know, hangs, right? It hangs in this kind of low arc, right? And then he's got relatively big chin because of his beard, right? Like that pushes it out. You see what I mean? And he's got, you know, I'm not going so much into the top of the head and all today, but look at the slope, you know, look at the slope up here. So, you know, it gives him a certain kind of character too, you know, strong-willed, strong-headed, but friendly, all right? Interesting. So this woman has a little bit more of that kind of hawkish nose, right? She has an interesting thing going on here too. Some people have this where the forehead actually does have like an apex to it, you know, and then come down, and she's got this little brow, you know, ridge line. Then she's straight, and then she's got the hookish kind of nose like this, right? Now, in some cultures, like I said, this is the ultimate, right? Like total beauty. Ironically, here in the US, like all of a sudden it's villain, right? I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's fair to people who have that kind of nose, but that's how like it's been done over here in the US, right? Like you wouldn't see her as a princess. She would be one of Cinderella's like evil sisters, right? Just the way it works. Long mouth, long upper lip, right? Small bottom lip, so that's kind of interesting, right? And then again, very weak chin, right? Notice it dips back, not strong chin at all, right? So that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. You know, this girl has got sort of a very American heroine profile. She's the one that's in the thumbnail where I outlined. She's got a good nose, right? She's got upward sweeping nose, roundish forehead, shorter upper lip, but you know, relatively like full lips, strongish chin, right? So friendly profile, basically friendly profile. It doesn't mean, by the way, if we looked at the front of her face, if that is going to line up as princessy or friendly. Someone can have features in profile that are friendly, but are not from the front view. So it's kind of an interesting issue all in itself. I just want to leave my segment today with you guys understanding that, you know, you can really work force into a face, and that profiles matter. You know, it really affects character, but you could sit there all day long just doing this kind of thing. right? I could just do this all day and just go, where's the apex changes? What do I want this to look like, right? Here's 4 faces right off the top, right? And I could just play with each one of these. Make this huge forehead hanging with a little upturned nose. I got a big upturned nose with maybe no forehead. Maybe put a hawk nose in here. You know, and it's fun, I gotta say, super fun to just keep coming up with face after face after face. And that it's very forceful. Again, I'm pushing things, right? I'm constantly thinking what's pushing up, what's down, what's pushing out more, what's stronger, what's weaker. And, you know, as I said before, going off this like very simple curved line, what's pushing out of that line, right? And what's potentially pushing in that line? You know, how am I playing with it, right? Any questions in the forum before I hand it over?
There was one I actually answered it. It was usually like when designing a new character, do you start with the profile to establish the character and then the other views?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, it depends on the artist. Sometimes I do that. I have done that in the past because the profile is so simple. It's so fast. I not only have done that with characters, I have done that with objects, you know, like just on a profile because it's so simple. It's a great place to design. It's easy to manipulate before you start expanding all the other information into it, you know. It's a great way of getting profile, you know. Kind of reminds me, I know my mom still has a profile cutout, you know, like some artist came to the school with a pair of scissors, right? And like I remember for our class, and my sister had it done the year after, cut out the silhouette basically of the kids in a classroom, right? And she still has those, and it's cool, right? It's cool to see just a black cutout paper of your head, right? And what your silhouette actually, you know, looks like, right? And that's so simple and it's so powerful, right? So profoundly powerful. Before you even get into all the other minutia. As soon as you add form and construction, right, things start getting more complicated. So when something's flat, it's a lot easier. It doesn't matter if I'm, you know, designing a face or we're designing a car. You know, it's like instead of going in and designing like a 3/4 car, right, like right off the top, a lot easier just sit here and do profiles of cars. It's like, you know, what's just the general shape? Is it like this? Is it like this? You know, is it like this? You see what I mean? Like these are called speed forms, by the way, in that industry. It's like thinking about the nose of it and how it's designed. But starting with silhouette is just like a great way of getting a certain kind of personality, certain attitude. So I would say for faces, it's actually it's really a great, fast, fun way to iterate, right? To try to get character. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to who's next? It was Mertunjay, right? Yeah. So Mertunjay, you're up whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you for all the great insights, man.
Thank you.
Making my life easier. All right. So what we want to do is take the knowledge that Mike shared with us today, and we will start like designing those faces. But the actual process, like how do you want to do it? So usually what the mistake that what people do is like if they're thinking about profile view, they were not thinking about depth anymore. They were like, oh no, this is like a really flat view, which is, yeah, which makes sense, you know, because you're looking at the side, you're looking half of the front and half of the back. Okay. I remember like Leonardo da Vinci, not the DiCaprio. He said in his notebooks like the profile is really powerful, is the most powerful view, okay, because you're looking at the half of the front and half of the back, okay, but it doesn't mean that it's a flat view, okay. It's a flat view overall, it's a flat view, but you still want to show the depth, okay. You can't have like a let's say you can't have like a cutout like this, and what people usually do is like this, and that's it, right? So this is what they're doing. So introducing to you is the technique that you know we basically use is called sandwiching. Okay, So what is sandwiching, right? Sandwiching is we can understand that as layers, okay, like different layers, as you can see also in the Photoshop that we have layers. So same kind of layers. So when you see it face, let's say in a profile view, while we are talking about faces, you see like the eyes, okay, you see like the eyes is like really in the front of this. So here I'm saying, oh, here's the first layer, here's the second, here's the third layer. Okay, now see, you don't see the third layer because it's at the back, right? And so the profile, like the middle layer is like blocking that other part. Okay, but you see the first layer and the second layer mostly. Okay, so this is the front, and you are looking through here. Okay, so this is the camera basically. So this would be the front layer, this would be the middle layer, okay, this would be the back layer. So usually in the profile view, what you're looking at is the front and the middle, okay? Now, a few things would line up in the front, would lie in the front layer, some things would lie in the middle layer, okay? And basically what you're doing is like trying to create depth using those two layers, okay? So so this is called sandwiching. Okay, sandwiching means just like shoving in the layers and trying to like show the depth and really seeing them as like separate groups so that you can bring depth even to your profile views. Okay. Now, how do you do it? Like, what are some of those objects? So basically we're gonna talk about overlaps here. What are some of those places where you see these overlaps? Okay. So eyes, okay. You see like what's happening. Again, mistake that what people do is they don't consider this as eyeball first, okay. Now the eyeball, basically you have a circle, convert it to a sphere, okay, which is the eyeball. You want to like draw some lines across this, okay. Draw some like cross contour lines around this, or we usually also call these form lines, okay. Just basically metaphorically tying a rubber band around the form so that it shows you like what it is, what is the volume of it, okay. Now obviously this is with the in drawing, okay. With shading you can show that, but in drawing this is how we show that, okay, using form lines. You see, I can also like go back, by the way, okay. Now, but this has to be lighter. The front, the lines in the front would have like more darkness overall. So in the profile view, well, many people consider, in freeform view, many people consider it, but not in profile. Okay, so they take it as a circle, and then they don't wrap around it. So basically, they're making like Egyptian eyes. Okay, have you seen those before? So it's basically just like this, right? Really, really flat, have like no depth at all. I mean, not even this one, it's like that, right? So don't draw Egyptian eyes, okay, while you're drawing profile views. They're famous for the profile views, by the way. But what we want to do is like still bring the 3D form to these drawings, right, that we're doing. So you can see right here how I'm using the overlaps, okay? Just gonna put some circles around here. You see right there, right there. So it really feels like, okay, the eye is wrapping around it. And this isn't a profile view. It doesn't mean that this is an extreme 3/4 view that I'm talking about. It's actually in the profile view as well, okay? So you see the eyeball, okay? And what you want to do is like wrap around this upper lid and the lower lid, okay, of the eye. So you got something like this. Again, just talking about like three-dimensionality, this is one of the ways you can do it. And just I'm just talking about this eyeball. Now we have this, okay. Sclera is the white part, okay, and the pupil is the colored part, okay. So we have this like pupil right like this. If you're looking at the front view, okay, or something like this, then we have it something like this. But while we are on the profile view, this is gonna become like really tight, okay. So, and it brings like depth to your profile views, okay. So there goes the eye. Another place where you would really see is the nose and the cheek, okay. So the nose, okay, and the lips are, let's say, on the middle layer, okay. We actually talk about the sandwiching here. So consider this, I'm just gonna put it right here. Okay, so you see like in the middle layer, we have like the nose and the lips and everything, but the cheek is in the front layer, okay, and that is why it overlaps a lot of the nose, right? A part of the nose, I would say, okay, part of the nose. And it would be even more obvious, when somebody has like really heavy cheeks, okay. So obviously it depends upon faces. When somebody doesn't have like a great volume in the cheek, by the way, so it's kind of hard to see. But with few people, or with many people, it's like they have these heavy cheek bones. Maybe they have like a lot more structure in the cheekbones. Maybe there's a lot of fat in there, or okay, something like that. So it depends, but if they have like these heavy built cheeks, then what's gonna happen is gonna hide the nose more. Okay. So in this case, it might become something like this. I'm just gonna erase it here. And maybe it's more like this, right? Maybe there's like cheeks are more hanging, right? And finally, like see, using these tricks, you can actually go back in, and what Mike told is like you can build in like different personality types. Okay. So another could be that someone could have like really tight cheeks, so they might just have a little line in here, and their nose and the bridge of the nose, or what do you say, like uh these wings of the of the nose, right, are more visible. Okay. And they have like more tired cheeks. So there we go. No, so again, one of the places is nose and cheek. Then we have oh I wrote it wrong here. This should be jaw. Anyway, so we have one more place right here. As you can see, again, there's like 3 layers. Now these are like kind of 3 layers that we can see. Okay, we have the ear. Okay, and behind that we have the jaw coming. Okay, so jaw is like coming behind the ear is like the in the front layer. Again, you see like those layers. You see like those layers. So the ears in the front one. In the middle one, we have the base. Okay, everything. Sorry, the jaw, and then we have like the base of the skull like shoving in like mid in between the jaw. Okay, so see right here. Okay, so we have the ear, the jaw coming off from the middle, and then we have the base of the skull like going behind it. Okay, so again, using these overlaps. Lips is again a good part here. You see, like now, one more thing to be aware of, that the turning edge of the face, which is usually what you can see right here. See right here, that's the turning edge. So I'm saying, like, this is the turning edge. So in the profile view, it doesn't mean it goes flat. Okay, so turning edge might be a little bit on the side. So let's say if you have a face like this, again, you consider, oh, the turning edge is this this border right here. Maybe the turning edge is like this border here. Maybe you're wrong, right? And yes, you're pretty wrong, because the turning edge is almost like line here. Okay, so you had a little bit of perspective going on like this, and then you like turn on the side of the face. Okay, so there we go. And one of the cool places that what you can see here is the eyebrow. Okay, so when you had a face like this, let's say, just gonna draw it right here. So when you have a face like this, let's say in the profile view, so your turning edge is right here, which means the eyebrow is gonna come and then turn. Okay, so what mistake that you might be doing here, or like students usually do, is they take, oh no, they usually don't do this at all. They just show this part because there's a profile view and that's it. Okay, do you see like this part of the eyebrow, right, which is like turning away? This is what they show, and that's it. Okay, but you really need to be aware that this is going into perspective even in the profile shot. And then we have this kind of like turning towards the other plane, which is this plane right here. Okay, now let's bring it all together. Okay, we'll try to create like a profile face. Okay, and just it's gonna give you a demo here. So, oh, Mike, Mike, should I cover the proportions again?
Yeah, sure. Again, I usually do the square and break it up that way.
Yeah, exactly. So usually, I know this is like a very generic rule, right? If you want to like create faces, really, really quickly, you should have a square, right? Divide that in 4. And now here you can like convert that to a jaw. Okay, so this would basically be your base. Okay, like this. And that's it. Okay, so and here you can have like the neck. There we go. Okay, so you can do something like this. All right. Now Mike uses half method. Okay, like everybody has some sort of like different methods. So maybe you do another stream, someday. But right now it's not like too much about proportions. It's mostly about like how to create the depth, right? And this like profile shot here. So again, same thing. And I usually divide this in third, by the way. So it's like thirds and thirds and thirds. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create that back layer first. Okay. Now, obviously, the layer which is at the most back, right? Let's say, for example, you're looking at this side of my face. So this side of my face would be the layer which you cannot see. Okay. So basically, what I usually start with is the middle layer. Okay. So middle layer, again, like the nose and the lips and like the brow ridge and like all this sorts of things. I'm just gonna do that really quick. Okay. Divide it. So here's that brow ridge. Okay, this plane change is like so important. It actually goes like this. Okay, so this is the plane, and here we have a part called glabella. Glabella is like this thing, as you can see, it's like a trapezium, in the middle of your eyes. This is like very important, like to create depth, and this is basically your nose. Okay, to see like this is going inside and then comes outside. Okay, which is kind of like this, and the eye like shoves inside of this because eyeball, right? So this thing is usually acting as a awning. Okay, awning on top, which protects us, our eyes, right, from things. So this plane change is like so important. Okay, now we get the cheek here. Again, you see like now I'm trying to create the front layer, okay, which is like in front of us, and the nose, as you can see, is like going back. Here you have, I'm just gonna switch the brush here really quickly. Yeah, so here you have the eyeball. Now see again the eyeball, and you want to create like this sort of depth to it. Okay, this is like wrapping around it. So I'm just gonna do that really quickly right here. Okay, now this is wrapping around. Just like this is let's see, like even at the profile we have like a lot of depth, okay, coming through this. This is a brow ridge, okay. Brow ridge right here. The lower gonna turn it down really quickly. Okay, now here we have the nose, right? The base of the nose, the cheek kind of covers it. The lips right here. Yeah, I'm just gonna create a quick lips here. Oh, one more thing, you see like from the side, sorry, we have the nose right here. There's a little bit of the bottom that you see of the nose. Okay, so let's say a little bit of bottom here as well. That's also a part which Svenley's gonna cover more. Okay, but just letting you know. So when you tilt your head, you basically see it more. Okay. This cheek protrusion is basically because of the cheek muscle, cheekbone, right? Zygomatic bone, which is usually it's called in anatomical terms. And here we have the profile. Okay. And right there. So there we go. And yeah, one more place where I told you. So this is basically the ear, the jaw, and the base of the skull. Okay, like the three layers that you can see. So the brow ridge, the base of the nose, this is where your ear would lie. Okay. Again, like a common proportion thing. Okay. The eyebrows and the base of the nose. Okay, where your eye is the length of your ear, and from behind it, and the jaw would come in, and then the base of the skull would like shove between those. Okay, so basically, if you see like the jaw, like this, right? From the back, and the skull, base of the skull is like behind it, and from here like comes your neck. Okay, so again, that's another thing that you can use. All right, any questions in the chat?
No, everything's been taken care of. Let's see. So Edward just said, so in the sandwich method, you're trying to be aware of or ghost in deeper structures that affect the way the surface structures look, or transition to deeper structures.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know you were reading the question.
Yeah, you should probably read it.
Yeah, so in the sandwich method, are you trying to be aware of or ghosts in deeper structure that affect the way the surface structures look, or the transition to deeper structure? I wouldn't say it's like ghosting or the structure that affects the other layer. I would just say it's like mm, it's just like Photoshop layers. You have like something on one layer, something on another layer, and then it just creates depth because these are like separate objects. Okay, for example, like the eyeball. Like for example, the eyeball is hiding this part if you're looking at from the profile, okay? But you see like there are two separate objects. So it's not like one, it's not necessarily that one is affecting the other. But in sandwiching or in layering, you're trying to like create depth between the objects. It's almost like having two separate objects, but now we are talking about a face where everything is like together. Okay. So I think that will be the answer to this one.
I think it's also like overlaps in a very shallow space,
Mhm. Yep, I
there's
would.
not much like space that we're talking about, like surface area on the profile of a face, right? When you look at like Matunje's drawing here, there's like this giant head, and then there's like an inch worth of space at the very edge that the whole human face fits in, right? So it's like this very narrow little trench. There's a lot of information in that trench. But you still have to think about, for instance, the surface of the cheekbone on the side of the face here, and then how it cuts into perspective to get to the eye, right? So there's some moments where you have to know how to grab edges and corners. And then sometimes it's about overlap, like anatomical overlap in a very shallow, like I said, a very shallow trench of space, right? And both of those things are equally important.
Yep, something like this, So basically, the turning
Yeah.
edge that you're looking at the face when we're drawing it from the profile view, usually have this like flat head, flat like part cut out of the head, like all from that sphere. And this is where the turning edge would come in, okay? And this usually attaches to your chin. So the side of the face is like really clear now, and this is the turning edge that we're talking about. So if you're creating this in perspective, you'll make sure that your lines are like going this and then going in that separate direction, okay? And when we're looking at this in the profile view, this is where the turning edge would cut in. So you see like it's still, even in the profile, it still has like two planes, that's visible. One is this plane and one is this plane. That's what Mike is talking about. When you're talking about like the cheekbone or things like that, you want to make sure that you're going like this, right? And then you're going like this.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. Time for Sandy to shine up.
All right. Thank you, Matunje.
Very welcome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so Mike gave you a nice introduction, and Matunje talked about overlaps, and I'm going to talk about dealing with the head tilt in profile, meaning that you have a profile view, but there is a little bit of perspective because we're either looking slightly down at the head or slightly up at the head. And the best way to do that is to relate the heads to a simple form. In this case, I chose a cylinder because I'm going to talk a lot about wrapping, but it could be a box, like the head is neither a box nor a cylinder, it's more like something in between, like Matunje showed you guys. So you can start with either, as long as you end up with a good head. So as you can see here, simple cylinder from the side view, and the eye line is about the halfway points of the heads most of the time. And one important thing to keep in mind once you start tilting the heads, as solid as this, there will be a little bit of foreshortening that's happening, meaning that if you're looking down at this heads, that means that this halfway points, because of foreshortening, this bottom distance is going to become slightly shorter, meaning that this halfway point is going to be a bit closer to the bottom of the cylinder than it is the top. And when we look up at the head, it's going to be the opposite. All of a sudden, the eye line is going to be a bit closer to the top than it is at the bottom. And that goes for all the other like measuring points here. Like you have the nose line, which usually is halfway in between, and the line for the mouth that is halfway in between that. So keep in mind that those distances are going to be slightly foreshortened once you start dealing with perspective. Very important to maintain the illusion of three-dimensional space. So relate the head to a simple form, and in doing that, like Mrityunjay also mentioned, keep in mind the head's turning edge. Again, the head is not just like a flat plane on the front, and I think here you can see it more clearly. If we think about the face, it's not this, it's more rounded at the front. So we need to keep in mind that even in a side view, because of the slight curve that is occurring, we see now when we put the camera here, the side view, we can still see a little bit of the front plane all the way to the center line, actually, which is what forms the profile, like the contour of the profile. So relate that to a simple form, keep the turning edge in mind. And with that, let's have some fun drawing some heads. So I made some very simple forms here of the head. One thing that I see students struggle with a lot is how to connect the neck to the head. I see all kind of funny stuff happening here. So keep in mind that the neck is like a cylinder, and it basically connects to the base of the cranium, which lines up with the base of the nose. So the nose would be here. So keep this connection point in mind. This is the neck muscle, the sternocleidomastoid muscle, from behind the ear to the pit of the neck. So very important connection points once you start adding the neck. Okay, so simple structure. The green line is the turning edge. Again, keeping in mind that it's not a flat plane, it's slightly rounded. So we're going to see a little bit of that front plane show up. So let's reduce the opacity a little bit here. And let's create a new layer on top. So let's start with this one. So here, as you can see, I toned the top plane because we are looking down at this head. And notice that, like, in terms of the shape, it's pretty much the same as what I have here. It's just that now, where we had these flat lines before, because the head is tilted, all of a sudden these flat lines, against like a cylinder, we start seeing these ellipses appear. And the width of the ellipse is important. It's quite narrow because it's a very subtle tilt. So very important to keep in mind. And once we start drawing, we need to take into consideration that the smaller forms are going to wrap around the big form of the head as well. So let's start with this guy, and let's start with the brow. And let's just have some fun constructing some basic heads here. So I'm thinking about the brow line, and notice that I'm thinking about this wrapping around. It's almost like a section of a cylinder. Also, this is wrapping around, and we start dealing with overlap. So let me get the forehead in here. And the turning edge, the corner would be here. So the turning edge is where we go from the front plane to the side plane. Now it's the corner of the form. So we have the brow, and we're looking down. So the brow is going to overlap the nose. I'm going to keep the forms relatively simple to make this clear for you guys. So now when I'm drawing the edge, that bottom edge of the nose, I'm not thinking of just a flat straight line. Now, if I think through, this almost like a horseshoe kind of shape, meaning that I'm thinking about this wrapping around. So I'm thinking about this arc. It just happens that we don't see this part because it's on the other side. But you need to think about it. You need to think through. So this is wrapping around. Now the form of the nose would be sitting in here. I'm just going to keep it very simple for this one. And then again, the nose starts overlapping the mouth. So it is very important if I start the mouth here at this corner, for example, and I do this, it's going to flatten things out. You know, I need to consider the overlap, meaning that these forms are going to be stacked on top of one another. So the mouth is going to stick out more like here. And the upper lip, again, is wrapping around. So I'm thinking about this arc again. Also keep thinking about these like horseshoe kind of arcs and about overlap. And we're looking down. So the upper lip is going to overlap the lower lip. So this is going to sit underneath. Again, not just a flat line. It's an arc. Now it's wrapping around. And here we would have the chin. Same for the chin. Once I reach that bottom plane, this needs to wrap around again. So I need to think through and think of the horseshoe kind of arc again. So this starts getting us form, a bit of perspective into that profile view. So here for the nose, I could add the turning edge as well, meaning that we see a bit of the front plane and of the side plane. Now I could add a turning edge for the mouth as well. Now this would be the center. So we need to keep thinking about the wrapping around of those forms. Let's see, so we have the arc. And for this view, I would definitely think about the cheekbone. So this would be on the side plane. And you could even think about how it goes and connects to the eye socket. And very important is to make sure that the eyes sit into the socket. Also, again, drawing the top eyelids and I'm wrapping around. Same for the bottom part. This wraps around. So I'm continuously thinking about these arcs and how they overlap each other. And if you have questions, of course, feel free to write it in the chat. So we have the brow. See, you can add the eyebrow. Maybe we'll see a little hint of the eyebrow on the farther side as well. And you would have the ear. And ear connects between the eye line and the base of the nose. Now it can go a bit lower and a bit higher than that, depending on the individual. Well, usually these are about the connection points. So this wraps around. And then we have the jaw in here. And even here at the bottom of the chin, it's looking a bit flat. I need to add some overlaps to create a bit more depth. So this looks better in perspective. Let's see, so we have the turning edge for the forehead here. Again, turning edge meaning where we go from the front plane to the top plane in this case. Again, this is the base of the cranium, which lines up with the base of the nose. Now, and for the head, I need to think about, here I'm thinking about the box in the sense of there is this plane. Now we have this top plane. And then we go to the side plane. Now, and someone asked earlier about drawing the hair on top of the head, and you basically have to think about how that hair shape sits on the head's form. So now I'm on the top plane, and here I'm getting to the side plane. Now we have the sideburns here. Now I'm just going to keep the hair very simple. So here again, I cannot just go with a flat line. I need to think about this plane, the width at the top of the head. The hair needs to wrap around the head structure, of course. Let me see. Oh, time went by pretty fast. So just a few minutes left. Let's do a quick one here. I'm going to do it a bit faster. I usually like to start with the brow. Now again, thinking about that arc. Start getting a bit more character in here. The first one was a bit more generic to show you guys how to build, but once you have those basic ideas in mind, it's relatively easy to create different kinds of character. Now and have some fun with this. So here we look up at the head, so you would see the bottom plane of the jaw. And depending on the individual, you would see like the skin pulling from underneath the jaw into the neck. See the neck muscle. And maybe this person doesn't have like a very prominent brow. Carving into the eye sockets. And so here's the turning edge. So there's the front plane. And then we go to the side plane. So this would be the bottom plane. I usually like to draw the turning edge from the cheekbone to the front of the chin. So I have a clear, again, front plane and side plane that I can keep track of. All right, hopefully these tips help you guys, and definitely go and have some fun applying the concepts that we discussed today, and let's see what you guys come up with.
All right, thank you, Swenley.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Hope that you enjoyed today's Force Friday. Profiles are an interesting thing, sort of elusively simple looking, but really not, right? So we've covered today all the way from the psychology or psychological potential of profiles, bringing force to profiles, direction, right? Upward and downward directions in profile have different meanings as well, especially when it comes to designing characters and personalities. Matunjay covered for us some of the really subtle overlap and structure challenges that come with drawing profiles. And then last but not least, Tony discussed those tilts in that fine line of construction along that profile of the face, right? Those upward and downward tilts. So be aware of, the arcs, the curves that get created in the anatomy there. And then also how narrow the spacing in between those facial attributes become, right? Wider when they're flat, and they start to pile on top of one another again as we create the tilt, right? That we're tilting, towards or away from camera. So that's it. Have a great weekend, a safe weekend, and a happy weekend. Draw lots of force and figures and faces, and we will see you guys next Friday. All right, take care. Thanks again, Swami and Matunjay, and we will all see you. Yeah, we'll see you in 7 days. Goodbye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, we are